Ladies and gentlemen, once again, as usual, we are going to talk about some of our design. Today we have something special for you. We always talk about integrated structures. We've been talking about a two-in-one integrated structure, and today we have something quite new. It is not a usual integrated structure. I want to point out that for you that has been hearing or watching our videos before, we talked about how expensive integrated structures may be. We've usually talked about big ones. You know, they have 300 goats, they have 20 cows, something like 1,000, but and I figured, why am I excluding my people that want to start small? So today, for you who wants to start something small, someone that is, you know, you have your son, daughter, you want to encourage them to start farming, but then even the things you see are quite high budget. You're like, if I tell my son to start this way, is he going to start the money? This video is for you because this one is quite small. It is a 3-in-1 integrated structure. So on top of being small, which means small in finances too, it also means this person, person can do 3 things at once, while at the same time not having a very, very big financial family. Let me take you through what we have today, and today's video is about an integrated structure of 3-in-1 chicken in one structure, which we have designed to be small first and foremost, so it takes up a smaller space. Yet in that small space you actually have 3 items in one. Of course, even the capacities are smaller, but basically, as I've said, for you who is starting, this is your package, favors you in all. I have to note that our structure today has a mix of zero grazing and free range, but however, if you choose to use it only on zero grazing, it is not limited. You can actually have a few tweaks here and there, and then it works just as well on zero grazing. Yet if you just want to set up the structure alone and let it go, you have the space for the chickens to go out and feed themselves, you have the space for the goats to go grazing, and you know, you have the space for the cows to go grazing. You still can use this. So that is the beauty of this one. Let me start with what we have generally on our structure. This structure, as you will see, has a provision of 6 dairy cows, has a space for 75 goats. At least the internal space for the goats can take up to 75 goats. Then for the birds today, I wanted it to be more specific. So it can take up to 610 with a bit of space. It can have up to 600 broilers and local birds. It can have up to 400 Kroilers, and it can have up to 350 layers, right? So whichever type you choose to go with, you're actually still in good numbers. 350 layers, that's a lot of eggs to collect. Kroilers, those ones produce both eggs and meat, so 400, that's a good number. 600 broilers, that is a good number. So your investment is actually paying. About the goats, I've said it takes up to 75. There, we leave a bit of room. I don't want to tell you the maximum capacity and then you pump the building, because you know I said that with a small number. As you've heard, these are all numbers for someone that is starting, low budget. Yet you have them in an even more low budget building. So what is it about? How is it? As you can see from our video, we have placed the chickens to be on the ground floor. Why? We still want to have the idea of a raised goat structure, which goat structure of course has to have a permeable floor where the waste comes out. They're going to be like a tail. How we've carried our knowledge from what we usually do for integrated structures and still used it in this one, but here now squeezing in more. So just as you can see, our structure is divided in half, right? It has a width of 9 meters and a length of 9 meters, which makes it basically square. But we've chosen to use a half, that is 4.5 by 9 for our 6 cows, and then our half for goats and chicken, right? So the rest of the science works the same. Our goat structure is what's up, and our chicken structure is below. We have our chicken structure roofed to separate the goat from the chicken, while allowing the droppings from the goats to actually flow away without going into the chicken. And then you realize we have like a trough or a gutter in the middle that allows whatever flows from that roof that collects the droppings from the goat to not drop onto the floor, but rather a guided system that allows them to be collected in one place. Then also there is a science here. You realize we could have placed that roof to pour outward, right? So that the corridor, what should separate the cows from the chickens and the goats, remains free. But realize when our cows are in their section, they are droppings are going to be literally in that corridor that is in the middle. So it cuts out the need for you to clean the corridor and then go around the building, the structure, and now start cleaning that. When you're cleaning here, you can clean in the gutter too, and then they all have a central collection point on one end of the building. That is when you look at it from the aspect of work done at the farm every day, so that you cut back on the work you have to do as a farmer, you know. So it makes it easy for us. Then you do not have to fidget when you're accessing the goat structure. So we put a ramp which is still covered by the shed. As we usually say in our videos, that it is very important that all technical and usable parts of the structure are covered under a roof, because our structures are majorly wood. So if you do not roof it, or you do not cover it from weather, protect it from weather, an extent of it anyway, you find that parts of that structure are going to wear out faster than other parts. So that is why we extend our roof to cover the ramp, so that it doesn't get affected by rain, that too much water and then quick drying of the sun makes the wood rot. So that's why we extend the roof, so that our ramp stays as intact as our structure, so that they have a predictable line. Then on top of that, our cow section. This cow section is majorly a feeding section, but usually you can have it done in a way that our cows just enter their cubicles, feed, and then while they are easing themselves, you know, the droppings do not fall where they stand, but rather backwards towards the corridor, so that later when this cow wants to rest, where it has to sit and sleep, actually that place may remain clean. So that's why we've provided cubicles between, because you could just leave it open, a cow walks in, it eats and what. But this basically helps it to first and foremost keep where its space clean. And then also you find that if at all you have a more superior or dominant cow and another that is weaker, you know, it doesn't keep getting interrupted on eating, because each cow has its own space. And then also, if you can provide like a means of closing, whereby if a cow enters, and lock it in as it feeds the other side, it also makes milking easier. Otherwise, when you leave an open cubicle where it can keep roaming and what, when you come to milking, then you're going to have literally tied down the cow somehow, so that it remains in one place. Anyway, we have inbuilt feeding trap for both our goats and our cows. These ones, especially for the cows, we've used plastic drums so that they do not wear out, and then they're also easier to clean. That even if they are like leftovers in the food, or let's say it rains while there are feeds in the food, and some of the rain tends to, like, let's say it pours into the trough, you're not going to find it becoming sticky and all that. You can actually clean the feeding trough. So total, just to go through our spaces, we have a 4.5 by 9 meter section for the cows, but they don't take up all the 4.5, they take up about 3. Then that 1.5 becomes a corridor of access and cleaning, right? That is one half. Then the other 9 by 4.5 becomes a structure for both the goat and the chicken. Then, let me point this out. You realize most of our integrated structures have been very high in height, right? Because of that roofing that comes in the middle. This one, because of its small size and the fact that it's not that wide, it gets a mono pitch, or a roof that pours to only one side, which negates the need to have a very, very high height. That way, our structure, you find that our structure, the most, if you're to give it a lot of room, just to provide more room for the goats that are on a bit of a high height from the ground, you find that you may make it like 3.5 meters in height, so that the chickens take up about 1.2, then you leave like a room for like 800 millimeters, that is about 0.8 meters to cover for that roof. And then you have a 1.5 up for the goats, which is sufficient. The goats are not that tall, so it's basically more room for you that comes to clean the house and all that. But then remember, there is also that room that comes from the pitch of the main roof. So there is a lot of room for our structure to be well functional without actually being extravagant, without making it material intensive. So that is our new design, and I'm very, very, very certain that this works for you who wants to start small, you who is not yet in that retirement age, but you're like, you know what, because most people think farming is for retiring, which is false. But you who wants to be like, you know, I'm still in town, I want to do something small about farming, I want to start my car project. This is your project. This is how you start. You have like a small piece of land, you have, let's say, an acre, and then they've told you feeding 50 goats needs about an acre of land, feeding 4 cows needs an acre of land. This style of structure cuts back on the space you actually need to spend on structure, right? So it gives you more room for actually planting feed. So you find that this being 9 meters by 9 meters, it's basically sitting in a plot of maybe 50 by 50, leaving a bit of working space and room, you know, and then you have a whole big space left of your acre to actually do a lot of other things, maybe plant feeds for the animals, maybe do some sort of plantation agriculture. You know, if you want to set up a house on that land, at that point you have enough space to actually run your agricultural project without hindrances of space. So basically fitting a big project in a small space. Anyways, that is it for our video today. That is our structure today. We are going to be bringing up more ideas, integrated ideas. Our next video, we shall talk about an integrated structure, still a 3-in-1, but actually where our goats are now on ground structure system, whereby they are not raised, which should even be cheaper because now we don't have that middle roof, which is less money still to work with. So please stay tuned, keep looking out for our new video, and thank you for following us this far. I remain Sergey Hamis from Kimdi Group of Companies. Thank you.